Hey everybody, Wildman here again, talking about our zoo design series. This is episode 3, where we'll be talking about bears, bison, and wolves. And it seems kind of an odd mix of animals, but there's a reason for it. And the reason is the way Brookfield Zoo decided to kind of put these animals together in kind of a themed North American environment. But first of all, let's talk a little bit more about the history of the bears. As you can see, zooming in on this satellite image of the zoo, in the southeast corner, kind of right across the mall from the big cat area that we talked about before, is where the bears used to reside. And I say used to is they had this area called the Bear Grotto. And what it was like 4 or 5 different stone encased animal enclosures, much like the big cats were always kept in, and kind of traditionally what you see in a zoo, where it has stone backgrounds, a moat separating the bears from the guests, and like a swimming pool of sorts in the middle of each area for the bears to reside in. And they've kind of abandoned this area and moved the bears to the far western edge of the zoo property in an area that's called the Great Bear Wilderness. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about that later. But it's just some more historical facts about the grotto area that we'll talk about first. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the original area for the bears using this original plot of the zoo. And you can see the Bear Grotto was originally these, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, it shows 5 here, enclosures for the different types of bears. And you notice it says tropical bears here and Kodiak bears here, and it says small mammals here, here, and here. Well, let me talk about a little bit what I know was in the zoo, which was, these grottos were there. And the interesting thing with this is that, you don't see a bear house. Now, I don't know if the plot just doesn't show it like it did the lion house, but there definitely was a backstage area, because the bears would go back into like a cave area, and they had to have them there for obviously examining the bears and so on. But it doesn't show up on the plot, and you can't really see it on satellite images either, because it's kind of built, I think, in the rock work and in the landscaping. There's a lot of trees in this area. Now, I also want to say, at least like through the 80s, there were some additional rock enclosures on this side of this central area, and it held things like mountain goats and rams and things like that. So it's just kind of interesting that those never showed up on the plot. They may have been added in later years. I couldn't find anything online to say when they were added, but I knew they were there because I used to look at animals there, and I used to take pictures of animals there. The other thing is that the small mammal house is the only small mammals that I was aware of. And when I used to go to the zoo again in the 80s and 90s, there actually was a bear enclosure here, and there was another bear enclosure here. This was the Kodiak bears, and over here were the tropical bears, which are like the speckled bears, and sloth bears. Those were the like different enclosures that were there. And there always was a refreshment stand. Like, it was more like a main restaurant that was in this central area here. This area has been closed and demolished, and the bear enclosures that were here and here are no longer there. And one other thing that didn't show up on this original map is, this whole kind of back corner of the zoo is where the children's zoo was built at one point. Let's move over to the Great Bear Wilderness part of the zoo. This is the area where the bears now reside. And what Brookfield Zoo has done is created an area that's kind of like a North American wilderness type area. So it not only has bears, but it has a bald eagle or bald eagles. It has some wolves, as well as a couple types of bears. Grizzly bear and polar bear is what I believe resides there right now. Let's jump back to the maps and satellite views and overlays of the entire zoo property to talk a little bit about how this area has transitioned over the years. So looking back at one of the original plots of the zoo, the area we're talking about where the Great Bear Wilderness is located is kind of in this area right here. And as you can see, it takes up a pretty big part of the zoo. Now, a couple things I want to point out is this area right here. This used to be like a mountain type area where there were actually monkeys and antelopes residing at one point in this area, and it was filled with water if you look at this old postcard here. And in later years the water was removed and it was just a dry moat, and antelopes were the only animals that resided in that area. And you'll see as we get into what the current view looks like, this entire area has now been demolished and replaced with where the bisons live. The other thing I'd like you to notice is this somewhat diamond-shaped walkway or section is where the prime bear habitats have now been relocated. And what's interesting is they actually kind of kept that original shape and footprint and to keep the bears in there. The other thing I wanted to point out was that in 1957, Wolf Woods was carved out of the forest area of the western part of the zoo, and that was kind of down in this corner right here. And the zoo staff actually undertook groundbreaking studies on wolf behavior, and that's been kind of a staple of the zoo ever since. And what was really cool is when they redid this Great Bear Wilderness, they incorporated the Wolf Woods into this area. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to kind of overlay still an old map of the zoo. Again, you could see here the mountain for the goats and the monkeys back then, and you could still see the general shape of the walkways is about the same. And now we'll go to a current satellite view. So as I fade into this satellite view, you could see how, again, right here, the mountain is gone, and the bear environments have been added into this diamond-shaped section of the zoo. So talking now, going into a little more detail. So as you can see, the walkways are a little hard to see because of all the trees are mature in this area now. But to kind of give an idea of what the bear grotto looks like, and that is right here is the buffalo or bison area. So they have a very large enclosure now. And what's cool is the walkway into this part of the zoo actually goes through a tunnel right here, and that tunnel is underneath the bison area. So the buffalo, and as you can see in this picture where it shows the entrance to the zoo, you can actually see bison standing up above the walkway here, which is actually kind of a cool way to enter into this area. So once you go into the main bear walk, there's an American eagle, bald eagle exhibit here, and then this is the whole Wolf Woods area right here. And these pictures I'm showing actually, for the most part, are pictures I've taken when I've visited the zoo. And so you can kind of see these are actually Mexican gray wolves that are in this exhibit. And it's really kind of cool because it's a very large area for the wolves to run around, very natural, has all these old growth oak trees. and areas where the wolves could hide and be wolves, I guess. As you can continue down further the trail, you get into the actual bear exhibits, and it has polar bears and grizzly bears, and I believe there's 3 enclosures. There's one here for a polar bear, and then there's a grizzly bear here, and then a grizzly bear back here. So it's down to 3 exhibits. They're actually not much larger than what the bear grottos were before, but they're a little bit more natural for the bears, where they have more logs, grass, trees, bushes, and then multi-level ponds or pools for them to swim in. So the nice thing about this is that it's not just a concrete rock enclosure like the bears lived in previously. The other thing is that the indoor viewing area gives you underwater viewing for a couple of the bears, and it's a very popular place for people to congregate and watch the bears. They seem very active every time I've gone there, and are very happy to show off in front of the people for the most part. The next thing I'm going to do now is overlay the long-term master plan, and the reason I want to do that is the master plan basically had this Great Bear Wilderness area envisioned in it, and what they built was a version of this master plan. Now, it's got a slightly different layout than what the master plan had, but for the most part, this part has actually happened on this master plan. So you can see the general area right here is is about in the same area with the same footprint as what actually was built for the Great Bear Wilderness. I guess the differences are is it has the bear building on kind of the south edge here, where in reality when you again fade into it, the bear facility is actually up here on the north edge of this area. So they did flip the footprint around a little bit, and the trail kind of goes around the perimeter in the master plan, and the actual trail does follow this path, and then it kind of cuts into the building to see the interiors and then comes back out. So it doesn't follow it exactly, but you could see that the idea of it is quite a bit the same. Wolf Woods is still there, in generally the same area, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the other thing I want to point out that is a little different here is this whole area is called a future exhibit, and it actually still has part of the mountain there. And again, I'm going to overlay the original map, and you can see that mountain is kind of in the same location, but this was obviously changed from the master plan where they added the bison into this area already. So, again, using the plan, but kind of showing how it does change from what they originally were even planning to do in this. It's a great area. I've spent probably over an hour or more in this area each time I visit it, just watching the wolves and observing the bears. The theming is very strong. It's got kind of an Alaska, Northwest, North American type theme to it, and it's really nice. One of the other things I just want to point out is on exiting the bear viewing area, you do go through a gift shop right here. And also there is a food facility right here as well near the exit. And just to point out one thing, if you kind of look back at the original plan, this refreshment stand that's here, that's actually, I believe, the same refreshment stand that this building is right here. I don't believe they tore the whole thing down, but they actually just used some of the core infrastructure of that facility and just reskinned it, with the new Great Bear Wilderness type theme. So again, just I'm trying to show the evolution of this area and how it, the master plan does differ, but how the zoo is actually making progress with the master plan. And, that's great to see. So that's about all I have to talk